Charleston celebrates its 350th anniversary this year, and to commemorate that, Charleston Pirate Tours brings you Charleston History Highlights. Hi, I'm Eric of Charleston Pirate Tours, once again out here with Bob today, and we're talking a little bit about some early history of our friend Blackbeard. But I left off the story when he was down in Nassau and meeting up with Benjamin Hornigold. And at this point, the flying gang is broke up. Hornigold has decided he's going after a king's pardon, but he encouraged Blackbeard to go out and build his own fleet, which Blackbeard thought that was a pretty snazzy idea. And while they're discussing their futures, along comes a ship limping into Nassau in horrible shape. Oh, it had looked like it had been in a battle like nobody's business. So Blackbeard noticed it and said, I ought to go see what those people are up to. Maybe I can give them a hand. I can certainly use another ship if I'm going to build this fleet. So who is the captain of this poor vessel limping into Nassau? That was a man we refer to as the gentleman pirate, Mr. Stede Bonnet. Now, who is Stede Bonnet? Bonnet was a planter, a sugar cane down in the island of Barbados. Wealthy, wealthy man. Retired major from the Army. Wife, kids. Mary Allenby was the name of his wife. And one day he left it all behind because he wanted to be a pirate. That was about the dumbest thing he could have done. Now people have thought, well, maybe he went through a midlife crisis. Maybe some people think he was bored. I read one account that said he had a disorder of the mind. But there's another reason why I believe he became a pirate, and this actually got verified by a woman I had on my tour several years ago. Several years ago, I had this lovely couple from Barbados. Never been to Charleston before, wanted to jump on my tour because they were fascinated with pirates, especially Stede Bonnet, since he was executed here. And come to find out, they actually owned the house next door to his plantation. So they jumped on my tour and they were a lot of fun. And so I started getting into Stede Bonnet's history, going through all of these many reasons why people have speculated he became a pirate. But the lady, she shot her hand in the air and she said, I can tell you exactly why he did it. I said, then tell me, ma'am. She said, to get away from that nagging woman he was married to. I said, but you're absolutely correct. She said, well, I ought to know, she's one of my ancestors. Seemed kind of proud of that. Well, at any rate, he decided he wanted to be a pirate. So, at this point, he goes out and actually pays for his own ship. Put 12 cannons on it, has to go out and hire a crew because nobody would voluntarily go with this guy unless he was willing to pay them. So they figure they're going to get a salary on top of plunder. How bad could it be? Well, how little did these guys know, because within an hour after they set sail, records indicate Bonnet was so seasick he couldn't stand up. Well, he did finally get his sea legs under him, but they weren't really having much success as pirates and made it as far north as Virginia and decided in August to turn and start heading back south. But as they're heading south, they decide they need some provisions. So where did they pop up? About 6 miles out from where we're standing outside the mouth of the Charleston Harbor. Well, they grabbed a couple of ships. Board the first one, well, poor guy, his ship was empty. So he boards the second ship, and it apparently had a few things. So he told the captain that his name was Captain Edwards. Well, the captain of that other vessel looked at him and said, I thought your name was Stede Bonnet. So how do you know who he really was? It just so happened that captain was from Barbados as well. So now Bonnet's identity has now been found out. And he couldn't exactly let these guys go because half the people living here are from Barbados. So what did he do? He commandeered both the ships. And these 3 vessels left here and headed up toward the Cape Fear River where they anchored, and Bonnet plundered the ships, and once he got what he needed, he let these people go. So now he's heading south. They get down off the coast of Florida, near the area of around Melbourne, Florida, and they spot a ship riding anchor. The crew decides to go after it. So they're going after this ship. As they get close in, there's no colors on the ship, don't know who they're dealing with. So as they close in a little more, Bonnet ordered them to fire. So they fire a round of cannon volley at that vessel, then their colors go up. just so happened it was a Spanish flag, and they realized they've now fired a cannon at a man-of-war class battleship for the Spanish Navy. I remind you folks that Blackbeard had encountered a Spanish battleship as well and was chased off with a shipwreck. Who knows, this could have been one of those very same vessels that was guarding one of those shipwrecks that Bonnet was unaware of. Well, needless to say, in just a matter of minutes, half of Bonnet's crew was dead. The men that weren't killed or severely injured kept their wits about them and got the ship turned around and got them out of there safely and limped out of there, heading down south again. Bonnet had been knocked unconscious. They had tossed him into the cabin to get him out of their way. Well, several days later, Bonnet stumbled out of his cabin, realizing they've anchored, and realizes they're sitting off the coast of New Providence Island. In other words, they've gone to Nassau. And most of the guys that are able to are diving off of that ship to swim to the beach to get away from that buffoon before he got them all killed. Now, there were some men still aboard ship, but frankly, they were probably too injured to get off under their own power. Now, Bonnet's looking at the mess he's got. There's blood all over the deck. The sails and the rigging are in a mess. Chunks of wood laying about where they were hit with cannonballs. And he notices a man board his ship and walked across the deck looking around. I do believe at that point, our friend Stede Bonnet recognized our friend Blackbeard. Why do I say that? Because we know that before Stede Bonnet inherited the plantation, Blackbeard's uncle was indentured to Stede Bonnet's uncle on his plantation, Mr. William Beard. So there's a good chance there was some family resemblance. So Blackbeard offered to fix up his ship, throw in a few extra cannons, bring some guys to whip his fellows into shape and show him how it was done. Bonnet said, fine, if you need me, I'll be in my cabin reading a book. And he retired to his cabin. And thus, Blackbeard took over this vessel. He left Captain Richards in charge of the ship that he had picked up while sailing with the Flying Gang, and now they're off on another adventure. And folks, this is where Bonnet's life takes a very wild turn. I'm Eric with Charleston Pirate Tours. Happy birthday, Charleston.